Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy Road Dogg here with the man, the myth, the legend himself, the man that resides on top of the hill, the king himself, King Karl. How are you, Chief?
Hey. Road Dogg, how goes it, my man? How's it going?
Well, it's going all right, my friend. You know, start to a beautiful week. You know, we're just not sure when you're listening, but playoff hockey is about to begin and all the right teams are set. So it's a wonderful thing.
The wrong team, minus one team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They're golfing and they should be playing, but hey, that's the way she goes, man.
That is the way she goes. You know, sometimes just there's setbacks, and this is a perfect segue. You see what I did there? It's like I'm a professional, like I've done this about 6 times before. Somebody wrote about the economy. So much like the Maple Leafs, there's some rebuilding that needs to happen. But when do you see the economy coming back, Karl?
So that's the question. When do I see the economy coming back? Whatever, like anybody in the finance world, what they're kind of, the questions they're answering, what kind of cycle are we in and where are we at in this cycle? The only problem is this is not a cycle. This is like a cliff, right, that we all fell off of. Just not a normal set of situations. So I'd never really seen this before, but I don't know. Look, positives. Let's go positive, negatives to make this simple. Positives, the reduction in interest rates have increased the value of investment assets. So we'll see that as positive. The Fed has obviously flooded the economy and the markets with cash and other forms of support, by the way, for individuals, companies, and institutions. And the Fed appear that they're willing to support, and provide stimulus well into the future. And I'd say another positive is that the virus, when this all started, nobody knew exactly how bad it was going to be. And it's not as bad as thought, but at the same time, I'll tell you, you don't want it. And it really is a bit of a lottery. If you get this virus, it may or may not run havoc with your system because everybody looks at the death toll, but there's a lot more to it than that, right? Like a lot of folks are, going through it. It's running carnage with their system and they're ending up in all kinds of rehab. But the bottom line is that it's not nearly as bad as once thought. That's for darn sure. Look, the negatives, the economy, to say that this is the greatest cliff drop, is like an understatement. It's just like the worst quarterly setback of all time. And again, it happened, it wasn't really over a quarter, but it was over like a record period of time. Another negative, the virus is clearly, we were just chatting, Road Dogg, right? Where, there's different parts of the world, like Melbourne, Australia, or Victoria, the state Victoria, in Australia. The entire thing is locked down. You're not allowed to go past 5 kilometers, I believe, of your house. So the virus is well and truly not under control. And so parts of the economy have opened up and then parts haven't. It's just complicated. Do you know what I mean? So I think that, where are we at? When do I see it coming back? I'm not really, that's way above my pay grade to be, giving that type of advice. But I do think that it makes sense to, get a piece of paper, draw a line and, down the middle, put positives on one side, negatives on the other. People are talking about a V-style recovery. Like that's pretty popular out there. And I just don't see that happening. And that's not what is happening, by the way. And I think if you really want to just kind of get your head around it, the economy will come back. Those saying that, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world and it's never going to come back. That's not what the experts are saying. Again, well above my pay grade, but well and truly that it's going to come back. But I would see it not as a V. Don't expect just magically it to reappear when, whatever, like the vaccine shows up or whatever. But look at it as a Nike swoosh, if you're looking at them on a graph. So it's going to take time, I'm going to have to ride it out. So look, the question is when do I see it coming? When do I see the economy coming back? I think just plan to ride out 2020 as best we can. Be responsible for yourself, your family, use social distancing, and just plan to stay healthy. And the thing for us, like, why the hell is nobody telling us, like, first of all, I've got like 3-4 doctors live on my street. And like a big thing is that like they go to the hospital and they work with this virus, it's just happening every single day. Clearly, if you're in a hospital, don't touch your face. You know what I mean? Like, don't touch your face. And by the way, locking yourself indoor is not a solution, but what you really got to do, like, this thing attacks your lungs more than anything else. Make sure on a daily basis, you're running stairs, you're on your treadmill, you're going for a jog, get those lungs cranking. Because like, that's just it's a 101, but then don't touch your damn face under any circumstances. You touch your face, like, I don't know what it is, but it's some insane number, not even per day, but per hour. You just got to get in the habit of just keeping your hands away from your face. And then if you get it, you just wash your hands, you put, whatever, like that type of advice I think is important. So looking at this, like what we got to do, but 2020, plan to ride it out. And I think 2021, all is going to come back to normal. When it does come back to normal, we are going to get ourselves a bit of a spike and things are going to get good quick. But we do have to ride it out. So above my pay grade, Road Dog, hopefully that gives some value, but positives and negatives. And, in the end, we're all going to be fine. And it's a pain in the, but you just got to ride it out, bud. So there you go, man.
The only thing that I'll add to that, Karl, is the fact that if anybody thinks that, like, when you say going back to normal, it's called it pains me to say it, just like like certain words I don't ever care to hear again, but the new normal, like, we're not going back to normal as we knew it, right? Like, things are going to be different. Yeah. So I just think people need to be absolutely ready for that and be prepared for that and realize, guys, like, this is a business podcast or business coaching podcast, geez. And look, at the end of the day, everyone went into 2020, right, with a game plan and a business plan. Guess what they don't have? A clue as to what's next. They need you more right now than ever before. So that is like, if you've ever felt like this is, like, man, I don't know if I should pick up the phone today or whatever, make that outreach. They need you, like, beyond a shadow of a doubt. And if they say, no, we got this all, like, look, there's some companies that are making a killing, and that's cool. But for anyone that saw this coming, like, let's get real here for a sec. So anyways, moving along, here's a good question for you. I could make fun even of many different ways here. There's Leafs tie-ins everywhere today. It's a beautiful thing. I've been in coaching for a little over a year, and I've come to the conclusion I'm lost. Wondered, like, I'm sure I'm going this, right? It's like, hey, I've been a Leafs fan all my life, and I feel like I'm lost.
Yes.
There? I that one, because this is a business podcast. Wonder if this is normal. So they're a year in, they're feeling lost. Is that normal? Or, I guess, can you give them some sort of word of advice?
Help. Yeah. I mean, normal, yeah, but by definition, the reason that somebody would be lost is that you don't know where you're at, you don't know where you're going. Just imagine if you're in your car, you're driving, you got you got a map in front of you, and you're not able to establish where you're at, and then you're also not established where you actually want to go. You'd be lost, I'd be lost, everybody would be lost, and I think if you really break it down, that's probably at the crux here. So you've got to establish, you hear me saying all the time, that little red arrow. Like, if I am skiing or I'm at a national park and there's a map there, the most important part of that map for me, for you, for Road Dog, for anybody, is that little red arrow. You are here. So you really got to get, real and drill down as to, where that is. And by the way, what also happens, picture you're in your car, you're driving along, you don't know where you're at. You don't know where you're going. You end up following a red Ferrari goes flying by, and guess what you do? Oh, he looks like he knows what he's doing. Plus, that's a pretty cool car. I'm going to go and, I'm going to follow him. And again, you don't know where you're going. All of a sudden, he starts moving towards, rain, storm, whatever. You turn around and a Porsche goes the other direction or another direction. You follow that person. And then somebody in the roles, and no doubt what I'm trying to explain here, guys, is that you're sitting on Facebook and you're seeing the guy in the, the rented jet and the rented Rolls, and you're, oh, wow, he must know what he's doing, right? Because I saw him standing beside a Rolls Royce, right? Which is normally an indication that the guy has absolutely no freaking clue, and you should run absolutely in the wrong, in the other direction. But if you don't know where you're going, this is what tends to happen, right? So again, just imagine, that would be the definition of being lost, just going back and forth, back and forth. So what I would say is, okay, you've got to establish, little red arrow, you are here, and then you've got to establish that roadmap where you want to go. So I would, if you don't want to be lost, you got to really define the outcome that you're looking for. So let's say that I think a good roadmap for a coach, and anybody's followed me for any period of time knows this one, but local live events. And yeah, we're in the middle of a pandemic and you can't do these events as easily or as readily as, previous, but you can put 10 people into a room, and if where you're at, you can't right at this moment, you're going to be able to very, very shortly, right? It's actually a really good thing, because now it gives you a reason when people show up and there's only 5 or 10 people in the room. It actually gives you the perfect reason why you've only put 5 or 10 people in the room, which is going to work in your favor. But doing local live events just makes a lot of sense. So let's say that the roadmap that you're going to have, the destination, the roadmap is that you're going to run a local live event with 10 people in the room every 2 weeks for the next 12 months, right? So when then you got to totally buy into it. Like, in fact, the first thing that you should do is list a list of reasons why you want to pull that off. That, again, tends to lack in any roadmap anybody puts together, is that they put together a strategy and a game plan, but they don't have the reasons why. Like, for example, recently I did a fast. Okay. Well, I want to, I'm not going to eat. I'm only going to drink water for literally 4 days. Challenging for me, challenging for you, challenging for anybody, right? That eats normally. So what I did is I made a list of reasons why I wanted to follow through, things like showing up to I got a 7-year-old daughter. I want to be at her wedding. I don't want to avoid diseases that start with C's and everything else. So I made a list, and it was a pretty exhaustive one. It would have been, at least 25 items long. So I'm craving the chocolate bar. I'm craving the sugar. Instead of going to my strategy, I go to my list of reasons, and magically, guess what happens? I no longer crave the chocolate bar, because I start thinking about my 7-year-old daughter's wedding one day, right? So what I'm saying is, if you are going to follow through on this, make a list of reasons why you're going to follow through, and you're going to have an event every 2 weeks for the next 24 months. And a little X factor here, there should be some personal reasons in there, no doubt, but I also want you to make them some reasons about some other folks, right? Again, like separations and divorces. Divorces happen from lack of money 100 times more than they do lack of love. Well, if that's something that motivates you the way that it does me, put that on your list, and that will motivate you more than making 150 grand over the next 12 months, right? So make some reasons that are significantly bigger than yourself. But anyway, so again, I would create a roadmap to do it. And then what would you do? You got to pick a venue, I guess, right? Make sure whenever you pick a venue, 2 things are very important: parking and traffic. Okay. So you're going to pick a venue. I want you to call and then book that damn venue. And by the way, do something else nobody ever wants to do. Pull out your damn credit card and pay for it. Because once you pay for it, guess what? Now you're going to be 10 times more committed to doing those events. So no, you don't have to pay for the 12 months. Pay for 4 events, let's say, right? Then what do you need to do? You need to get a list of business owners together, right? Again, do a little bit of homework, not just any business owners. What kind of business owners are you looking for? You're ones that have won and been nominated for local awards. You're looking for ones that have been advertising locally. You're looking for ones that are on the top, the front page of Google, because they're spending some time marketing themselves and spending some time on SEO. Look for the members of the chamber, the members of the, BNI and the equivalent groups, right? So what are you looking for? You're looking for people that are active, not just, any old business. That being said, if you can find new businesses are going to be great, as opposed to somebody who's been around for 20 years, both of which can be excellent prospects. But if you gave me the option, somebody just getting up and running, think of it versus the puppy over the 10-year-old dog, a little bit easier to train. So, get a list of business owners, get a list of JVs together. Of course, you do that. What else did you do? Look, create a script. So when you get these guys on the phone, create a little bit of a mock script. Create an email that you're going to send out to them before and after. Create a text message, a private message, a Facebook message, a LinkedIn message. You might want to create a landing page. You want to go and, like, once you get that list, I guess you want to go, like, I'd go to social media and I'd start friending and connecting with these people with 100% certainty. You should totally, hopefully you've already done that. You should totally be doing that. So yeah, then you're going to contact those folks. And here's maybe a little bit of an X factor. So you're going to get on the horn and just the nuts and bolts, guys. You're going to write a list of reasons why you're going to follow through on your goal. And then you're going to, create a list of activities that you need to take in order to get, set up so that you're going to have tons of people and be able to get your 10 folks in the room. Here's a little X factor of doing live events that I really want you to take away from this, because it's absolutely, it's a little bit of magic. And that's it. Let's say I put 10 people in a room at the local boardroom. Well, there's probably 10 people that say, quote unquote, maybe, or plan to show up and couldn't at the last minute, whatever happened. So you'd have 10 people that show up. Let's say that you had 10 maybes. And whenever you do an event, you should always put it out there that your game plan is to get I always threw it out before I started that I would get 2 referrals per person in the room. Like, I didn't think about how much money I was going to make. I didn't think about how many, my conversions. I always wanted to get 2 referrals per person, because I always knew that, generating leads was always a challenge, and that if I was able to generate an enormous amount of leads, that the coaching clients and the joint venture partnerships and whatnot would kind of look after themselves, right? So that's the intention that I walked into the room with. I figured if I got 2 referrals per person sitting in the room, then I would have done a hell of a job, and then the rest would look after itself, right? That was the intention I walked in with. So let's say that you do half that well and you get 1 referral per person in the room. We'll do the math. You got 10 people that wanted to show up that couldn't. You got 10 people there, and then you've got 10 referrals. Okay, well, basically, for event number 2, you've now got 30 people that you can follow up with, right? So event number 2, you've got 30, and then event number 3, you've got 60, and it's going to be 90, and then 120, 150, 180, etc. So what happens is the ball starts to roll, and it just becomes so much easier for you in the future, right? And then another little X factor, and if you've heard me talk about live events, you've heard me explain this, but the good news is it always comes back to the fundamentals. It's all pretty basic. But what I do in event number 3, and I'm just choosing event number 3 because I'm going to assume that you're going to get better at it, right? Like, it's pretty straightforward. What event number 3, what I do is I get the accountant into the room. And then the question is, well, what do I do in order to get the accountant there? And the answer is whatever it takes. I don't, hope for the best, and I don't, I do whatever it takes to get the accountant into the room for my presentation. And then I don't tell them that this is coming, but in the middle of the presentation, what I do is I highlight that accountant, right? And what would make sense is that I do it at the time when if you were an accountant, you were in my room, at the point where I started talking about numbers would naturally be the point where I would throw it to, kind of the accountant, highlight him, talk about how the number one expense in your life, my life, his life, everybody's life is taxes. Although if you gave me a room of 100 people, 80 wouldn't know that, right? So basically, and I'm kind of just talking about the importance of accountants and how a good accountant works for you and a bad accountant works for the government and accidentally sends you the bill. And I rev him up and I talk about how good he is and how important he is. And how do I know that? Because I've gone to his LinkedIn profile. I've gone to his social media profiles. I've gone to his website. Like, I've looked around. Maybe I've spoken to a couple people that work with him, right? Like, depending how deep you want to go. But really, remember, you do whatever it takes to make all this happen. What I'm getting at is that when you're the accountant in my room and you don't expect this, and all of a sudden you become the highlight of the show for a short period of time, believe me, you're kind of thinking, oh, wow, this is pretty cool, right? Well, at the end of the event, remember, this is the 3rd event that I'm doing. I go to the accountant. Remember, certain people in the room I want to sell to, but then there's other people that I want to sell through. The accountant would be an example of somebody that I want to sell through. He's got 300 small business clients that work with him. Imagine if he jumps on board and decides to promote me. That one individual, he got 10 people in the room, and one of them is the accountant. You can imagine that he probably deserves a little bit of TLC, more so than the others. But I just basically hit him with, if you thought that was a good presentation, let's do it in your room. And, there's a good chance that he goes for it. If you put 10 of them. Now, event number 4, I'm going to put the advertising guy in there. And then event number 5, I'm going to put the promotional company that sells the golf balls and the T-shirts and the mugs, etc. The idea being that each event that I do, and I throw it, the guy who, sells the advertising and owns the magazine or the newspaper, I throw it to him the same way that I threw it to the accountant, and then the promotional company, I talk about him for a few minutes. Basically, I highlight them, and what that does is going to strengthen your ability to to form joint ventures like nothing you've ever done before. There's nothing quite like, that, what am I just edifying people from the front of the room. Super powerful. But bottom line is, what I'm getting at is your road for somebody who's currently lost, looking to get some traction. And it's just, you got to establish the red arrow. You are here. What's your network look like? How many business owners do you have contact with when you start to do these events? How you're going to be able to do it and who you're going to be able to invite, and then create a little bit of a roadmap and then follow through. And then when the red Ferrari goes by and the Porsche goes by and the Rolls Royce goes by and the rented jet that not even rented, the guy standing beside it, you're not going to fall for it because you just know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly what your roadmap is. Make it so much easier. So Road Dog, I don't know if if somebody's lost, I would just, they're a car in the middle of nowhere. They've got the map, but they're not following it. I would also just, Road Dog, before I throw it back to you here, man, I would say this. I've got a program. I have coaches that have done 7 figures. Like, if you go to an interview I did not long ago, I talked to one of my 7-figure coaches, got, many of them. But we've also got coaches that, they get going, they're completely lost. They don't get anywhere. And it's like, what's the gap? And then without question, the gap is normally just their own world. If you analyze it, they've just got so much crap going on. You open up their phone and they got 30 apps, currently going live, right? They're trying to do Instagram. They're trying to do Facebook. They're trying to do LinkedIn. They got 3 different programs. They've got, this visions of grandeur where they've got this program that's going to be absolutely monstrous and it's going to take over the world. And really all that does is really it's like being in LA and having to get to New York. That is a very, very long distance, and you jump in your car. I mean, if you didn't, concentrate on where you were at, where you were going over the short term, you'd never end up getting to New York. And if you didn't have a very clear destination between the accidents and the detours and everything else, you'd be thrown off. So basically you really got to just, drill down, and just stop with the insanity of everything that's going on, in your world. Like, you just got to, you got to knock some things away, I'm going to give you a metaphor that might make sense, what I'm trying to describe. I have a friend, right? And they're going through some marriage problems, during these problems. And I laugh. I'm not laughing. He's actually dear friends. Hopefully, maybe listening. And if they're listening, hopefully they'll take it to heart. But there's nothing I haven't said to them face to face. But they have bought a dog. They have bought 2 cats. They have bought an enormous, a bunch of new furniture for their house. They have moved. And without knowing the family, what they're up to, do you see how they just got, a new dog, 2 new cats. They got 2 kids, who are young kids that are, growing up. It's like throwing all that extra stuff. How could that possibly be good? So go through, here's what you do: a pen and piece of paper. Let me give you this. Here's the problem. Here's the solution: pen and piece of paper. And I want to write down all the different distractions that you've got in your life. And then the more of those distractions you can move away, and not just move away, but totally eliminate, the quicker and easier it is going to be for you to, basically accomplish your goal. And if you were drill down, okay, well, give me another example of that. Even look at the amount of time it takes you to plan on what it is that you're going to eat, because you have no plan going into the day on average. So breakfast is a decision, a series of decisions and time away. And then lunch is a series of decisions and time away. And then you've got the coffees and the teas in between, and possibly, whatever else, like a smoothie or whatever it might be. And then you've got dinner is another series. If you plan that out for a week, I have just saved you an enormous amount of time and effort. And then you guys have probably all heard this one by now, but like the Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, like they always wear the same thing, right? Why do they? Because you heard Zuckerberg, he's talked about this very openly and many times. It's just, he doesn't want to spend his time thinking about what he's going to wear. He's got significantly bigger and more important things to be thinking about. So he just wears the same hoodie and the same pair of pants, and he's got many of them, right? So anyway, so that's that. I got to tell you, just taking things off of your to-do list, let's call it it's not a to-do list, it's more of a distraction list, is absolutely critical. And the coaches that crush it, the ones that aren't lost, the ones that are very, very dialed in, are the ones that eliminate the distractions. And I'll just, for my own world, I'll just tell you this: growth is what you say yes to. Success, well, growth is yes, success is no. Do you want to grow or do you want to be successful? And clearly successful should be the roadmap over growth times a million. So I just say no to pretty much, like, my default answer is no in business. And that doesn't mean that I don't come off no and then take on something new or do something new or do whatever. But I can tell you that if this has not come naturally to me, and this is something I've worked on over a period of time, just start with no. Do I want to watch Game of Thrones? No. Do I want to watch XYZ? No. Do I want to watch the Maple Leafs play hockey? Yes. But start with no, and then I move very quickly to yes. And now that they've been knocked out of the playoffs, I'm done. But anyway, so you get the idea, Road Dog. Just that distraction list, man, can just crush people. So a little bit long-winded, but I've heard it a million times. We'll hear it another million times. Somebody's feeling a little bit lost. It's just little red arrow. You are here. And then establishing where that destination is. And you got to be very, very clear at defining the outcome. You got to, in fact, define the problem. And then, like, saying that I'm lost would be an example of a very poorly defined problem. Very poorly, right? So you got to get really, really clear with what the problem is, and then get really, really clear with what the outcome you want is. One event every 2 weeks for 52 weeks of the year, no exceptions, no anything, laid out, venues, prospects, everything. So there you go, Road Dog. That's what I'd say to that, man. But I get it, bud. I've been there.
Do you dream of being a contestant on The Bachelor? Yes. That is The Bachelor with
Great
Tom.
show.
Bachelor.
A great show. Sadly, that's another one on my to-do list. Which, by the way, I read somewhere that there's some craziness in Bachelor land, that the existing Bachelorette has decided who she wanted and ended the show, and I don't know what's happening. So
I'd love to say that I know exactly what the hell you're talking about, but unfortunately, I have marginally better taste in television shows as I finished watching Jersey Shore Family Vacation last night.
There you go, jerk off. There you go. I tell you, Bachelor is like one of the greatest social experiments of all time. If you want a lesson in sales, I'll tell you, just watch that show. I've done a recap every time the episode, the season's over. I do like a business lesson because I learned out of it, and got plenty of feedback over the years as I've done it. And I tell you, there's plenty to be learned from Bachelor Nation from a sales perspective. But hey, let's move on from that.
So back to your point from that last one there. I just want to chime in a little bit, because I think one thing that sort of hits me from time to time is we all get distracted doing a whole bunch of random stuff. And sometimes you just need to be able to take a step back and go, okay, hold on a second. Like, what are my money generating activities? And then from there, it was part of a coaching program. His name was Max Dixon. And one of the best lines ever from him was, you have to keep the main thing, right? Like, can you ensure that you're keeping the main thing, the main thing? And your main thing is business making, like money making activities. And I know we all like to go down rabbit holes. It's like asking Karl a question on a podcast. Sometimes you get 5 different solutions, but sometimes you just need one, right? Like, pick one thing. Like, if you're going to do the live event, small group event thing, you can do that socially distanced. Just do that. Become the best at that, right?
Yeah.
Be the expert in that.
100%. In fact, Well, there's like Michael Jordan, famous for this one. He was, again, unbelievable basketball player, clearly, but he was doing this commercial and that commercial and be like Mike and this, that, and the other. Then at one point, he just went back to the main thing's got to be the main thing. And, Kobe Bryant, again, Wayne Gretzky, and of course, you're going to mention my boy, Tom Brady. Just keep the main thing the main thing. And as soon as they don't, again, if you're the GM of a football team, okay, and one guy, the rookie who just signed a decent contract, shows up with 2 massive earrings, a Lamborghini, you know what I mean? And then just add everything else that goes, right? And the penthouse and everything else. What are you thinking, right? And it's not that there's lots of guys that have done that, and then there's anomalies, right? But I got to tell you that believe me, they talk about this kind of thing and they just go, uh-oh, this is not necessarily a good thing. And of course, then what happens? They end up getting cut at some stage, whether it's then or, a few years down the track, and the expenses don't go, but the revenue does, the contract does. And where do they end up? And that's why they end up there. The lifestyle is the one that gets you. The lifestyle. So keep the main thing. And yeah, Road Dog, make it local live events, and you'd probably be very good shape.
Tell you my Trevor Linden story?
No, what's that?
Okay, so my boy, my favorite Vancouver Canuck of all time, Trevor Linden, who is just a gem.
Legend. Yeah, I love him.
Right. Yep. So my buddy in Calgary is actually the investment advisor for Trevor's parents. And when Trevor signed his first contract, geez, that would have been way back in the day, but still a handsome amount of money, right? Yep. So his dad was like, "Oh my God, like where's Trevor gonna go with this? Like, did we do a good job in terms of raising him right?" So sure enough, he signs his big initial contract and he calls his parents. You know what the first thing that he bought was? His huge big purchase?
What was it?
A hot tub. It was a hot tub.
A hot tub. Oh my God, I love it. Yeah.
Like, that's it. So, but again, speaking of a guy of, anyways, with the character thing, I just thought that was kind of, it was just a cool story of one of my.
Well, he's gone on. It's for those, but that's like, it's perfect because we live in, like where we live, British Columbia in Canada, there are a series of Trevor, his number was 16 when he played. Trevor Linden 16. There are fitness centers all over. I don't know if they expanded across Canada, but they're all over BC. So the guy who bought the hot tub, right, stayed humble, stayed real, has gone on. And he's a very, very wealthy guy. He's a guy that, he had a long career and made some good dough. But like you said, that was years ago, and it wasn't the kind of money that the guys are making now. But he's gone on to do very good and impressive things. And, those two are correlated, man.
The funny thing is, Karl, too, speaking of patience, too, right? This guy's just sort of slowly building his empire, not overdoing it. And now he's taking over a whole bunch of the Steve Nash Fitness World or locations or whatever all around the Lower Mainland.
Is he? So, yeah, there you go. So there you go, man. Love it. Love it. Love it. Anyways, stay humble, folks.
Okay, here's a good one. You recently said incentives run the world. That's kind of a weird statement. Like, what the? Okay, incentives run the world. Okay, I'd love to hear a couple of your best incentives of all time at the end of this. But can you further explain when you say incentives run the world?
No, I don't know if I said incentives run the world, but that's cool. That's but I get the idea, and I'll tell you, incentives. I don't know if they run the world, but they are the foundation of most people's decision making. Well, in fact, so incentives. Look, just think pain versus pleasure, real simple. Because most people, you'll hear incentives, and we think on the positive side, it's a little bit surprises, right? Like you ask somebody, "Hey, do you like surprises?" They say yes. No, they like the surprises that they want to get, right? So pain versus pleasure. Incentives are both positive and negative. Like I've talked about this, there's 4 ways to motivate staff, and there's rank recognition, prizes, money, and then take prizes. You could also put competition in there, by the way, but rank recognition, prizes, money, intellectual property. I created years and years and years ago, went very in depth in this. But, well, look, I know there's a story of FedEx, and I know that they were having all kinds of challenges. I think of Amazon, where everything lands at a central distribution point and then goes out from there. Well, FedEx had has the exact same layout, and they had all kinds of problems getting their planes out on time. And very simply, they had hourly staff, and then they changed their hourly staff to basically shift. Think results orientated, like you get XYZ out, and then you get paid whether you're here or not. Well, magically, guess what? Everything turned in the right direction, and voila, everything was out every single night versus, prior to that incentive, the adjustment in incentive from hourly to results was nothing but a challenge. Or like, in fact, I was reading this not long ago. I can't remember the name of the school, but it was private schools and colleges are clearly incentivized to grow their client base, right? And think about it. Why? The incentive is money, right? So like I go to XYZ degree, I'm going to pay XYZ, call it, $50,000 over a couple of years or whatever it is. And that's how they're incentivized. Well, there's a school, I think it's called Lambda, something like Lambda. But it's a tech school. They don't charge you anything, and they're incentivized. Like they take a percentage of your pay for the years following graduation. And then I'll let you guess, like say I just said $50,000 a minute ago. Well, what do you think that Lambda makes out of their graduates? And it's significantly more than the $50,000, but it's spaced out over a long period of time, right? So, and it's not always money. Very important. Rank, recognition, prizes, money. Those are in order. Okay. So again, rank, if you're a police officer, you're trying to become, the senior constable is higher ranking than the constable, clearly. Okay. Like a business owner versus a manager. That's one of the main reasons why we do what we do, right? We want to become business owners, call our own shots, but believe me, being able to say that you're a business owner has got, a massive amount of intrinsic personal value. Recognition, it's a pat on the back, it's a thank you, it's employee of the month. Prizes, again, putting competitions together, where I work in a hair salon, and there's a board in the staff room where the person that sells the most shampoo and conditioner, like retail products, basically goes to the top of the list, and they get a bonus. Not only do they get the public recognition, but then there's a bonus for, it's a trip to Vegas, or it's, a gift certificate, or it could be cash. But bottom line is that there's a competition, which leads to a prize. And then the last one is money. And this is by design, not by accident. I know it'll go against conventional wisdom and whatnot, but I just tell you, once you people need to be living at a certain point, they can't be, starving to death and living in poverty, clearly, fairly straightforward, but you live in Western society. You don't realize how rich you are, even if you're at the bottom, of the food chain there. But the bottom line is that money is the last thing that motivates people. So I just go back to, the boss offering, just different incentives for completing tasks. Or again, employees are, they're going to be more likely to do something when they're, just think of the results-based example I just gave you for FedEx there. They're going to be more inclined to do something. Like it comes back to McDonald's, right? Like every time we walk into McDonald's, it's amazing when you look at McDonald's, and I think we talked about this literally last week, but like Founders, one of my favorite movies of all time. And then McDonald's, if you really understand the McDonald's business model and how good it is, like when I say that, just they follow the fundamentals of Business 101. Like it's almost mind-boggling when you really do some homework in there. Well, you walk in, and on the right-hand side, like you have all the, you're ordering your burger and your Happy Meal or whatever it is, and you look to your right, and there's an employee of the month. Like they just literally got it, and there's a photo of the person, right? They did it for years and years and years. They just follow the absolute basics. And then there's the ones that like don't follow, like the U.S. healthcare system. Like clearly it's a little bit messy. Well, if the people making the decisions had, an alignment of incentives with those that were, receiving the healthcare, it would be sorted out so freaking quickly. It would just blow your mind, right? But it's not. Or, these lockdowns, again, like, we really understand what the heck's going on and the people making the decisions. And I don't, I kind of joke around with my emails and whatnot. And it's like, do I think that all government workers are evil and they're all, water skiing and all that sort of thing? I know that there's a significant number of them that are having the endless summer right now. But like, the reality is that they're good people trying to make decisions, but their incentives, pain versus pleasure, are totally out of alignment with everybody else. So, it's like, what decisions do you think they're going to be making, right? And in some cases, I don't know, they just, without going down that rabbit hole, Road Dog, like it's upside down in terms of the people who are making the decisions. Their incentives are, just out of alignment. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So it's a little bit crazy. So I just line up, you got to make sure, and then you can do it personally, like do it within your own company, right? Like I ran a program, how to form a joint venture with an accountant. Well, as part of that program, we would literally close 2 accountants for you. You can just imagine, we put together that program that, look, there was some serious pressure on us to not only deliver a really good program, but to, our alignment was perfectly in sync with the people who were participating and paying. It was a number of thousands of dollars, but the alignment for us running it and the alignment for you doing it were perfectly in sync. So guess what? Super successful program. And then that's me. Again, don't want to sit here and pat myself on the back. I throw it back to you. Have a look at your own coaching program. Have a look at your program that you're putting out there for your clients, and make sure that you've got that alignment in sync. So Road Dog, that's what I'd say there, man. Incentives are absolutely huge. Just think of it as pain versus pleasure. If you want to just, bring it down to its foundational, to its foundation. But I do, they're well documented, as being, a real secret sauce of the business world. And I think that it's one that's not talked about very often. And when you really start to understand it, it's just like when you go to buy a program from a famous internet marketer that really felt like, let's say Frank Kern, who I think I've spent a lot of money with Frank Kern, and I got his programs. When you go to buy them, the bonuses that he puts in front of you significantly overvalue the program that you're buying. So let's just say the program is, $2,000 that you're going to buy from him. Well, the bonuses that he'll put in there is like $20,000. Well, those bonuses those are incentives, right? To get you to act now. As a business coach, something like scarcity. I hear this all the time, right? So I'm talking to a business coach, and then I'm like, well, you've got to build scarcity into your sales process. So they're like, well, I don't really have any sales scarcity. And I'm like, yeah, you do. You see, you can only take, like, how many coaching clients could you take on? And of course, on average, the average business coach would get going, hasn't taken the time to really sit down, work out their numbers, work out the amount of time that they'll have to spend with each client, and then work out kind of if they're building this glass ceiling, et cetera, right? Well, you can handle 15 one-to-one coaching clients, right? Well, like, if you can only handle 15 one-to-one coaching clients, I got news for you. That's scarcity. You've only got 15 clients. You don't have to disclose how many of those 15 spots are actually taken. And you just say, look, I only take on 15 clients. If you want to work with me, you've got to give me an answer. And if you can't do it right now, I'll give you 24 hours. But if you don't give me an answer, I'm answering for you. And that answer will be no, not yes. So are we going to rock and roll? Right? So incentive. So scarcity. So the incentive there is a negative one where you're pulling something away. Right. And believe me, people want what they can't have. And again, just think of high school. If you're a guy listening, the girl that you wanted to date in high school is the one that didn't want to date you. And if you're a girl listening, the guy that you wanted to date was the one that didn't want to date you. Right. It's so straightforward. It's, fear of missing out. Everybody's got it. Me, Road Dog, you, everybody. So you need to factor that into your sales process. So things like scarcity, but you got to understand that is a form of incentive, right? Where if they act now, they get the positive result. And if they don't act now, the decision is made on their behalf and it's no. And that's, if you've done a good job during your sales process and in the presentation, they truly are looking at that as a negative, not being able to have your time. So yeah, Road Dog, incentives, man, they're absolutely huge. And if you're not really familiar with this topic, like I said, you just go and Google it. I believe I wrote an email. Well, I know I did, but I don't know how long ago it was now, but I'm sure if you searched there, you had to look through my One Thing series. you'd be able to find an email that I wrote on incentives, which is lots of examples and whatnot. And I believe that they got huge power, bud, and unrealized power. So that, and I think that the scarcity example I just gave you, again, is a really important one. Like most people don't have that built into their sales process. They don't feel comfortable with it. They don't feel like they have it. And that's nonsense, including your high-end coaching clients, by the way. And you've got to just help them come up with an ethical way of creating some scarcity. So there you go, bud. That's my answer, man.
Is there one that stands out for you, like the best incentive offer you've ever seen?
The best incentive offer I've ever seen. That's a good question.
Like top of your head, is there anything that sort of stands out where you're like, ooh, I was not expecting to make that purchase?
Yeah, let me think about it. No, well, okay, I think we should just look at the guys who are like the best. That's a great question, right? But if you just go to the guys who do this the best, just think of where, because you're just talking about marketing here, right? Like incentives are, actually, no, that's not true. That's not true. Incentives are built through everything. But I think what you're asking for, right, is like an example of it down there. And just go to late night TV, and then you're going to see people, it's Tony Robbins back in the day doing his infomercial. In fact, I believe that still runs. But, like when you go to buy, and if you decide right now, we're going to throw in this, so you're about to buy the, X, whatever it is. It's what's that crazy guy? That towel that sucked everything up. What was it?
ShamWow.
Yeah, that's it. ShamWow. There you go. ShamWow. But just look at the way he does it, right? So it's like you're going to buy a ShamWow, and then it's X. And then he puts in a ShamWow, and he puts in this, and he puts in that, and he puts in this, and he puts in that. So you're just incentivized to make that decision right there. And that they're paying big bickies for that airtime. So, like the bottom line is that's working. So at the time that they are about to make the purchase, again, say, well, look, if you decide, like, well, I'll give you an example of the way I would, actually, let me give you a couple of my own when I'm sitting and selling somebody coaching. So back in the day, I'd be sitting with you and I wanted to close you on coaching. And again, you're humming and hawing, and I knew I had to pull out all the stops. And part of the magic is I was always selling on behalf of somebody else. Like I was never the coach. I always had a coach sitting beside me, and then they'd be getting the client, but I was doing the coaching. Like I was doing the closing. So think of the incentive for me, like it's bigger than me. I just know that these guys want the client, need the client. The money really matters to them. So I want to get those deals done. So I would have a check in my pocket. Okay. And then you'd be humming and hawing. And then let's just, again, use the arbitrary number of 10 grand for the coaching program. I would write a check for 10 grand to Christian Road, dated today, 2021, as in like 1 year from now. And bingo, bango, bongo. Like I'd slide it across the table and say, look, does this make you feel more comfortable? And they go, oh my gosh, wow, yes. Or another example that I would do is, I had the ability to write a business plan that would normally impress folks, right? Like I got $1 million sign from angel investors, from a business coaching company. So that business plan, I got that on my computer, I wrote it, with the help of others, by the way, to be clear. But the bottom line is I have that business plan. I've got the ability, if you're a mortgage broker, a realtor, a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, I could whip together a business plan that would look pretty damn good, and it would have numbers and all sorts of stuff. So I would have one of those. I always had stuff. I was doing these face to face, to be clear. And then I would basically have this, and I wouldn't always use it. I most certainly wouldn't always use the check. But I would have some stuff, incentives, right, around me. And then one of them would be, an example would be a business plan. And I would say, look, so if you rock and roll today, have a look at this business plan. Like you're a mortgage broker, so I definitely wouldn't pull out one for a mortgage broker. There's a bunch of reasons why I wouldn't do that. But anyway, so let's say that I had a business plan for a daycare. I'd pull it out and I'd say, well, look, as part of our roadmap, I will also knock together a business plan for you. They'll look like this. It's not going to be 100% ready to go. There will be some work necessary at your end to complete it, but it's going to look something like this. And this will be like a 50-page document or 50-page business plan. I'd say we'll knock one of these together for you. And by the way, and if you're wondering what this was for, this is for the mortgage broker to go to the bank to get approved for a $100,000 loan or a $100,000 unsecured line of credit. And they're like, oh my gosh. So you could imagine that incentivized them if they had any inkling that they might want to go to the bank and apply for a loan, what have you, this would work in their favor and they'd go for it. So that was another example. I could give you a few more, but just think of, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I already know what the client wants. So I would whip out a bunch of, different added extras that I could throw in to get the deal done. So much like the late night TV ShamWow, where they pull out all the stops at the last second to say, look, let's get this thing going. Because if I left that meeting without getting the deal done, and this goes for everybody listening, if you leave that meeting without getting the deal done, the chances of you coming back, from my experience, and somebody else's might be different, right? But I'd be surprised. You just got to get the deal done in the moment, because they don't go away and think about it and then magically come back and say, golly gee, I can't wait. Let's do it. My wife thinks this is the smartest thing I'm ever going to do. It's just not the way it works.
No.
So,
and by the way, one of the most frightening things that my wife has ever witnessed is typically when she walks into a room and I'm watching an infomercial on like steak knives. Like, it's just horrifying because she knows.
What? You're buying?
Like, those things I'm addicted to those commercials, by the way. It's amazing.
Are you? There you go.
So
there you go, Road Dog. We learned something new about you today, bud.
There you
I have
go.
a bachelor's
Right.
you,
So
you've got too many steak knives.
So, progress does in fact equal happiness, slow progress. So 3 questions. Next week we'll strive for 4. No promises, everybody. No guarantees. Carl, can you close us out with giving our listeners your 30 seconds or less that they can do today from today's podcast?
30 seconds. Look, I think incentives would be again, I think that's a important place to go. But I think where do we start there with the economy? I know I'm answering so many questions about this and what's going to happen and, where's it going to go, and just rest easy that 2008, it's happened before. It's going to happen again, by the way. It's a pain in the you-know-what, but what you can control is what you can control, right? And that is your effort. You can't control the economy and the virus and this, that, and the other. And you can also control your own personal health, by the way. Don't touch your face, eat healthy, and get those lungs moving. Get exercising on a daily basis. Otherwise, you're crazy, because you got to give yourself the absolute best chance. If you get this bad boy and it runs rampant, that's not going to be fun. So there you go. So stay healthy, folks.
For me, I just say that one thing that you're resisting, that you got to do, but you hate to do, the one thing that you hate doing, be it phone calls, be it whatever, just do that today. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the man on top of the hill, my boy, King Karl. And if you're not getting Karl's daily emails or want more information on how to build your coaching company, visit focused.com. And that's focused with an ED at the end, not for any medical condition that Karl has. Focused.com, and subscribe today. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share with an existing coach or someone you think would make a great coach, someone that loves Tony Robbins, or just a great salesperson or the highly motivated type. And of course, we always appreciate if you'd rate this episode, as we know that iTunes, Spotify, and the like give an insane amount of weight towards reviews. So please leave a review if you like what you heard. Well, that's it for another week. Remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Make it a fantastic week, everybody. Take care.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.